from where did this all start? How did you get this idea? Was there some point which inspired you to take this route, and the entire journey, first of all, from you?
Okay, so I'm a bibliophile. I've grown up on books. I was staying with my grandparents, so there were no siblings, which means books were my only friends.
Hmm.
And when I was fairly young, which is a Sai Paranchpe movie. And
Hmm.
in the first 2.5 minutes of the movie, there is a scene in which a sighted child is reading to a blind child. And in the
Hmm.
last 2.5 minutes, there is a scene in which the blind child is reading the story to the sighted child. So my destiny was basically decided that night. As I grew up, I thought more and more about how do we expect a child to grow up without access to books.
Hmm.
And from there, it was only a matter of time. In college first year, NSS, they put up a board looking for students who want to learn Braille as part of NSS. And by then, I'd been looking for someone to teach Braille for 4 or 5 years. So I dropped whatever I was doing and rushed there. And that is where my journey with blindness started. 2 3 years of college, obviously, I did Braille as part of NSS. And did like a lot of Braille, and hats off to my mother, because till 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning, way back then, to do Braille, we used something called a stylus, which
Hmm.
means that if you have to write Y, which has 5 dots, that would go cut, 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 like
Hmm.
that. And my mother put up with that. We lived in a small house. My mother put up with that for 3 years. So after that, I started looking for other schools to volunteer at, and since then it's been going on. As one worked with multiple, like whichever city I would go to, whether as a tourist or somebody living there for a while, I would first find blind schools. And the more blind schools I saw, the more I realized the issue is that we are not getting enough access to books, storybooks, enrichment content. So in 2005, Esha started as a separate initiative, um, with the mission to create Braille books directly for the blind person. At Esha, we don't use the word, we use the word blind, because we believe that there is no challenge, impairment, or disability. One is able to see, one is not able to see, and they're both statements of fact. And when somebody comes to volunteer with Esha, maybe I will run this with you and your viewers also. Do you feel like you're disabled or handicapped?
No.
You don't, right? I don't feel that way either. But when your cat looks at you, she thinks many things, of course, that this human feeds me and all that. But among other things, she thinks that poor humans, I don't know how they manage in life. They are practically blind at night.
Hmm.
When your dog looks at you, among other things, he also thinks, poor humans, I don't know how they manage. They cannot smell to save their life. How do they live their lives? Poor souls. But you don't feel disabled, right? You,
Correct. That's all.
I
Second.
said, you don't feel, we are all olfactorily challenged as
Correct.
humans.
Correct.
We
Correct.
are also all night blind, but you don't feel challenged, impaired, disabled, handicapped. Why is it? Why is it that you do not feel handicapped, even though
Hmm.
you are clearly olfactorily challenged?
Hmm. Hmm. Correct. That's
Think
that's
about it.
perhaps because at night we are using external aids to support us. We feel that we are still capable of traveling and getting our work done. Is that the
Yes,
answer?
yes. If humans are blind at night, they've created lights. So we have enabled the world for our disability. And
Hmm.
therefore, when anyone associates with Isha, the first thing we teach them is that there are no disabled in the world, only disablers. Somebody is feeling disabled today because you have enabled the world for your disability, but not theirs. And therefore, we don't use words like challenged, impaired, disabled in at Isha. It is blind, which is a person who cannot see, and sighted, which is a person who can see. And they are both statements of fact.
Hmm.
So the three keywords of Isha are dignity, empowerment, and enablement. Which means that on none of our communication you will ever see the standard NGO things that you see, which is smiling faces, poor things. We do not allow our volunteers to address anyone as poor things or underprivileged or anything like that. So we started with that, with the concept of books. Then in 2007, at IIT Delhi's MTech, with IIT Delhi's MTech students, we ran the first theater workshop for sensitization. Then in 2010, we started the online audio library for in Indian languages, because I started it for the blind, and then I realized that English is not even the third language for 70% of India's population. So what Google and Wikipedia did for people like you and me has not happened for half of India's population even today. Even today, knowledge resources are being created in English for literate people. So the idea behind CLABIL was, it's called Central Library of Audiobooks in Indian Languages. Central means everything is at one place. There is no sign up. You don't have to, and it is online. Audiobooks, because braille, transporting braille books, especially to remote blind schools or smaller blind schools or individuals who are not in institutions, who are living at home, was logically is going down around the world, not just in India. And late blind especially find it difficult. So we did CLABIL, which is Central Library of Audiobooks in Indian Languages. Central because it is online, no sign up required, no subscription, no nothing. Audio because braille is logistically more difficult, especially with smaller schools or individuals who are not living in schools. To reach braille books to them on an ongoing basis is little difficult. And Indian languages, because like I said, English is not even the third language for a large part of our population even today. So CLABIL started, and it is 100% volunteer driven initiative. Today, it has over 6,600 files in 23 Indian languages. And you will be happy to know that every single one of them has been recorded by a volunteer on their own time. Okay. And then we started the Esha summer program in 2011, where we invited students to volunteer, because in summer months you can't go out and you need a student volunteering initiative. Today, a lot of students volunteer for CV points, etc. But back then, I was only, giving students a chance to do something different. So today, the three verticals of Esha are, and we started Braille cards in 2005. So today, if you see a Braille card in India, there's a big chance that our team has done it. In 2019, just before COVID, there are two blind professionals who are also brothers. In 2019, they registered their own legal entity, and now they run that service business pan-India.
Is the name Venkatesh, if I'm not wrong?
Yes,
one of them?
Venkatesh and Chandru.
Okay, right.
Okay, so they were trained by us from 2005 to almost 2012, 13, and then we sort of mentored them a little bit, and now they are full blown. So today the verticals of Esha are, number one, knowledge democracy, because we believe that everybody needs to have equitable access to knowledge, not equal, but equitable, which is what they need. Under that, we have CLABIL. The second vertical we have is sensitization, because we believe that people are not exclusive by design. It is not that you do not want a blind person to be on the road, on the pavement, but it's that when you're walking on that pavement, it doesn't occur to us that this one doesn't have tactile tiles, this one doesn't have a ramp. It's not part of popular conversation. It's not also part of public consciousness. So we do a lot of fun sensitization events to talk about the need for public space accessibility and sensitization towards disability. We believe that an inclusive policy needs an inclusive public. And while there's a lot of work happening on policy advocacy with the government, there isn't enough happening on sensitizing the general public. So that's our second vertical. And the third vertical we have, which I realized 2 years ago, is we have just finished our first major research, but we will be working as an independent research body in disability. Because I realized that there is inadequate research, and because of that, there is suboptimal decision making. Not because people want to make solutions that are not adopted as well, but because we do not have enough research to make great decisions. And it came from my own experience. 2 years ago, we conducted a national research into knowledge acquisition behavior of the knowledge have-nots, which included the blind and other users of CLABIL. And we realized that the way we have designed our knowledge resources is not the way that our people look for knowledge. So from our own lessons, we realized the need for an independent research organization. Those are our verticals today.
Okay. So if I may interrupt you for a minute, I have two questions. One, about the guidelines. You said only volunteers do the recording of various books, and there are already 6,600 files recorded by volunteers. So if volunteers want to, let's say some more volunteers want to get into this, so what are the guidelines? What are the requirements? Can you specify that as well?
The only requirement is that you should be able to speak slowly with clear diction. That's it. You don't need to be able to read the script, because a lot of people today read Indian languages in the Roman script. We are okay with that. We just need spoken language. Other than that, we provide a how-to guide. Somebody has very sweetly also recorded a how to record audio for people who have never recorded their voices and don't know how to go about it. So we provide the guidelines. It's a very templatized approach.
Sure. Thank you so much. The second question is, you mentioned about address. How do we address people who cannot see? So we have two categories, one who can see and one who cannot see. So
Right.
we've also come across terms like disabled, and then consciously society started using terms like specially abled. We moved from disabled to specially abled. So do you think specially abled solves that earlier problem, or is it still uh, we are treating them as underprivileged?
This is very interesting. I won't let my personal view interfere, how the public views it, because that would not be fair. Now, in this research that I'm talking about, and which, by the way, I'm very glad to share, we'll be releasing with you today. Uh, One of the things we asked was, what are the three words that come to your mind when you think about blindness? Now, this is not a question with any bias, either positive or negative. We are straightforward, unaided recall, asking what are the three words that come to your mind.
Hmm.
And you'll be surprised to know that many people felt that those who lack one sense are compensated in some other way. Some people wrote they are very intuitive. Some people wrote they are God's special children. Some people wrote, oh, they have a sixth sense which always tells them about everything.
Hmm.
So I am not sure where the term special ability is coming from. But if it helps the popular discourse, if it helps people feel great about the way they are addressing somebody, and the person being addressed is happy, fantastic. The
Great.
industry standard term is still VI.
Okay. All right. So moving on to my next question that I have for you, Nidhi. When you started off and came this far, what were those challenges that you faced? Apart from obviously sensitization itself is one of the biggest challenges I feel. Apart from that, did you face any challenges? If yes, what are those challenges and how did you overcome those challenges?
Okay, so we started in 2005, like I mentioned, with Braille books directly, but we also started Braille cards in India.
Hmm.
And at that time, people used to ask me, why do we need Braille cards in India?
Hmm.
What will one do with Braille cards? So for many years, I've fought that battle alone.
Hmm.
And today, you will be very happy to know that the Prime Minister's office has Braille cards. The British High Commission's office has Braille cards done by our team. So coming from there to here, I think what helped overcome the challenges was, one, I will not name the soft drink brand, but I used to go to bed. Many nights I've gone to bed saying, it is poisonous. It has no nutritional value. If somebody can sell soft drink brands, I can bloody well sell brain cards. And I used to go to bed with that thought in mind. But the second was also that there were so many people who came forth to support
Hmm.
out of absolutely nowhere. There were
Hmm.
people who called up and said, you're doing this and we want to help. They spoke about it to their organizations. India Life, which remains, I think, and remain for a long time, our largest client, is by somebody, by a friend of Esha. So we call them friends of Esha. Uh, just, I think, the support of all those people, and one after other. So in 2012, I said to somebody, my job is to sit here and fret and fume until God finds a way, and then doors just open on their own.
Okay. Okay. So there are people who want to extend their helping hand.
Oh yes, they go like way beyond extending their helping hand. They will send you messages like, don't give up, it's fine, it'll work.
Hmm. Okay. So referring to our conversation that we had before this call also about having an inclusivity at the workplace where we can have more and more people recruited by corporates. So obviously knowing the pressure that people in corporates go through, the kind of KRAs that we have. So everyone is expecting work to be done in a jiffy. And obviously we need to be understanding and empathetic when we have people who cannot see. working along with us. So how do you think this is going to shape up? Are people ready? Are organizations willing to go that extra mile?
Thank you for asking this question, because when we would speak to CEOs and HR heads, they say, look, we are very, very happy to have an inclusive workplace, but
Hmm.
our other colleagues may not be ready for the change. Like you very rightly mentioned, people are under tight deadlines. So this extra transaction time, physical changes to the workplace, we fail the fire and safety audit, things like that. So we said, okay, let's ask these other colleagues who will not be happy. And through a volunteer network, and to ensure that there is no organizational bias, the survey was circulated only through friends and family. It was conducted pan India, and we have over 800 responses. It took us a year to get there, but we got them. And today I am very happy to share this research report. Those who are watching, please go to ishabraille.org, and then on the right side there is a download link. So the survey allowed you to respond anonymously. It was circulated through friends and family. Therefore, there was no need to look good for anyone. But
Okay.
98% of the people said they would be willing to make the changes, and
Mhm.
2% said they would not be willing to make the changes. So for me, the takeaway is, when an organization is looking at an inclusion program, they should start with yes. They should start with the assumption of yes, my people will support this. And some of the responses we've had are so heartening. They don't come from a place of charity. They come from a place of uh, having a different perspective at work will make everybody think differently, bring in new ideas, things like that. So people generally understand the value of having a more diverse workplace. And the second great takeaway for me was, one of the classification questions were, have you ever interacted with a blind person before?
Mhm.
The people who have interacted with a blind person before, even briefly, even once, were far more likely to say, yes, a blind person can be financially independent, and yes, we will make the changes. So the sensitization work that we are doing, taking children to blind schools, enabling public space accessibility, blind walks, things that open braille sessions, is going to create that more inclusive society that I had hoped to make. And it makes a huge difference. Even a single interaction with a blind person in the past changes the way they view both financial independence and the importance of inclusion.
Right, right. So Nidhi, what are your future plans? What are the future upcoming projects? And of course, want to know more about that research report.
And the rest of the
Mm.
report, I think I'll be very, very happy if people go there, and it's free to download. We are sharing
That's
it freely with
ishabraille.org, right?
ishabraille.org. On the right, in the top menu is downloads, and the first link is this research.
Great. So
So
we can
please share
read
it.
more about this there, right?
Yes, and share it with corporates, NGOs, government, all stakeholders. We have put the main findings in the exec summary right on top. So we don't need to, the report itself is not too long, but even within that, we've summarized.
Mhm.
And next year, there are a couple of follow-up reports. One is, we would like to do some case studies. We have done Achievers of Isha in the past, but I would
Mhm.
like to specially focus on salaried employees and their career journeys. And the
Mhm.
second thing I would like to do is, which is an idea that has come from this report, is working with colleagues of VI professionals and understanding the impact of their positive feedback on these professionals. The professionals who are in, let's say, more supportive workplaces, is their career trajectory sharper? What is the impact of this positive feedback on these professionals? And therefore, I think we need to start talking about an ecosystem of inclusion that is not just at the workplace. I think it needs to start from families. We have multiple families who insist that their children need to go to, it's a part of our culture also, that the children need to go to either a blind school or an orphanage or an old age home for their birthday. We might think of it as symbolic, but even that symbolic interaction leads to some sensitization. And the more we sensitize, I think the better everybody will be.
Right. So my last question for you, Nidhi, any specific ways people can associate with Isha and the work that you do? How do they get in touch with you? What kind of work can they do with you? Professionals, students, having some time at hand, weekends, weekdays, evenings, mornings. So what can they do? How do they
Okay.
reach you and what can they do?
Okay, we always need volunteers because we are a 100% volunteer driven organization. All our work, Esha finished 18 years this year. 18 years we've been driven only by volunteers. And depending on their interest, there are multiple things. Those who can record in Indian languages, please record. If you are a professional, it would make great sense to, and especially if you're a young professional, we need help on social media. We need help on creating artifacts that can be used for sensitization. And of course, run a blind walk in your office. It's a templatized experience. We train one person and they can run it in their building, in their offices, around them. The other thing in which we need help is reach out to a blind school near you and find out what their needs in the library are, audio library. Mostly they ask for copyrighted content, but in case they ask for things like questionnaires, like this summer we got a lot of MCQs and all done in academics because that's what the children asked for. So just help us find requirements, because if people are making the effort of recording, makes sense to record it against requirements. So reach out to a blind school near you, ask them that this audio library is available. What do you need us to record?
Thank you so much. I'm sure many volunteers would reach out to you watching this video. And on my part, I'll ensure that this video reaches out to the maximum possible people. I'll do my
Thank
best.
you so much. Thank you. And thank you for taking the time.